Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the MLS Now podcast pre-season extravaganza, keeping the naming convention nothing usual at all, which is, of course, the story of this league, which is, never business as usual. Just a reminder, as we get into it, I'm your host, Russell. You can find me on social media at Mr. Danger Russ, and you can find the podcast on social media at MLS Now Podcast. But most importantly, of course, you never come here to listen to me. It's always our wonderful, amazing guests. Today is no exception. Joining us all the way from Amsterdam, we have LAFC Dutch Dave. You can find him on social media. It's Dave Gomez. Dave, good morning for me. Well into the day for you, but glad to have you here nonetheless.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Russell. I'm super excited. And here in Amsterdam, there's not a lot of LAFC fans, although I do occasionally see LAFC and Angel City FC gear out here. But I am the one who's always going about town wearing my gear.
I would say we love to see it, but obviously I can't see it because I'm, not in Amsterdam. Maybe someday, we'll see. But I mean, initial gut reaction on that, do people stop you and ask and like, hey, what's that team? Like, where is it? Like, do you get questioned on it, or do people just accept it and be like, there's a million teams, who cares?
Yeah, it's a kind of a combo. I mean, whenever we had Chiellini, we definitely had some good talks with that. When we had Gareth Bale, getting Giroud, that definitely helps from that perspective, where you'll get some questions in general, and you'll see the recognizing glance when they see the LAFC gear. And then first they think American football, and then they realize that it's not. It's actually the world's game, the beautiful game.
Awesome. You're gonna build a whole like Amsterdam-based supporter group. I'm gonna see it. Eventually, we're gonna get like, how there's like the Premier League, like, they go around and show like the fan groups in like all different cities during the matches. They'll do Apple TV will send someone out there just to see Amsterdam someday.
I hope at 04:30 in the morning to 02, depending on what time it is. Absolutely. Finding a pub that's going to be open to accommodate us will be a bit more of a challenge.
I'm just now realizing, yes, that is quite the challenge on time. Like, we love to complain, right, on the East Coast, where we're like, all of our matches are kicking off at, the same time, and we don't get to see anything East Coast. Like, you guys have to make a consistent effort to watch even just the one for the team you support.
Yeah, absolutely. So this morning I got up and I watched the LAFC Club America friendly. That was a 04:30 start time. It's not unusual for me to do that. It was in the beginning, obviously, because I'm still a season ticket holder. So I'd much prefer to be at the Bank or BMO Stadium in order to watch that. But over the last 4 years, I don't make it out there as much as I do. So yeah, I'm up pretty early, depending on the day, and normally we'll take a nap for a little bit and then get my day started. Because most of the people here in the Netherlands don't really start their day till around 9. So you have a little bit of time, because if you really want to piss off a Dutch person, have an 8:30 meeting.
Note to self. All right. So I guess at some point we do need to talk about LAFC. We fortunately got a lot of our chat out of the way pre-recording, so otherwise we would be sitting here forever as we just, shoot the breeze. But so LAFC, let's talk about off-season. Been very busy for them. You guys have lost a number of players. You guys have brought in players. Can you do a quick recap for, LAFC non-followers who might be listening to this? And then as well, I'm curious, a top outgoing and a top incoming, in your opinion, in terms of, it could be who you didn't want to see leave, who you wanted to see leave, your pick on the outgoing, and then who you think is going to have the biggest impact incoming.
Okay, that's great question. We did have a lot of movement in the off season. Some of the top players that we had leave, that some of which I wish were still here. Atuesta, which is a returning original LAFC player, he's a midfielder, good command in the middle. Sometimes a little bit more hot-headed than I would like. He's no longer with us. I think he's coming back to MLS after a short kind of signing, if you will, down south in South America. We lost one of our original academy players he came Eric Duenas. I think now he's in, if I'm not mistaken, it's either Houston or I think it's Houston. Fantastic young talent. My only knock on him is that he needs to put on a little bit more size. He's 18, 19 years old, but his potential is quite significant. Carlos Vela, he was kind of in out last season, the original. I mean, he was our first signing in club history. Love him, trust in the King, and El Rey did fantastic for us. He promised a trophy. He delivered on a trophy. Yeah, several trophies, to be honest with you. So him not coming back is kind of a, personal thing, although his productivity over the last season or two, not where it should have been, in my opinion. And then the big one that we lost was Matty Bogusz, Polish player, fantastic. I loved him. Multiple positions he could play. Did a lot of offense for us. I mean, over 16, I guess, contributing over all competitions, about 30 goals. Because the last couple of seasons, we've played over 50 matches per season because of the competitions and making it to so many finals. He's definitely going to be missed. I mean, we definitely need to have some offense from him that is going to be missed. And also another signing that we had from Celtic. He came in, or was it Celtic? He was a midfielder. His name's escaping me now. He's now going to be in the EPL. He was a great midfielder that we had for a bit. I hope to see him, come back maybe someday from that perspective, but he's going to be a big miss. So we've had a lot of shifting in the David Murillo. He left too. So we've had a lot of good players that have been there for quite some time. Now on the addition side, we've had some good signings from the addition side that I think are really going to help us out. We've got young Igor Jesus. He's a Brazilian player. Got to see him play a little bit more this morning. He made a mental error, which led to the goal from Copa America. He's about 20. He's an under 22 signing. I think there's going to be great potential with him. We've got Holm, who's coming to us from the Scottish Premier League. He got injured, so we've not seen too much of him from that perspective. So I think he's going to be a good one for us to watch. And then we've had the opportunity to have David Martinez, we signed last year, who's going to be coming in and doing a lot from our perspective. And, we also lost Kai Kamara, which I loved Kai. He was fantastic. And then we've also had some other good players that I think, I was a little bit, let's call it ambivalent on Delgado. He came over from the other team, the Carson Galaxy, and he's been in the league quite some time. From what I've seen in the friendlies that we've had so far that I've been able to watch, he's very consistent. He's a good 7, 8 on the 10 scale player. He's going to be really good for us from that perspective. So we have some good additions that have been added to the team that I think will help us from that perspective and being able to do some good offense. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Kiki Oliveira. Kiki Oliveira is kind of trying to force a trade. Him and his wife want to go back to Spanish-speaking country. I get that. But there's a way to do that, and there's a way not to do that. And, I wish him all the best. He did great while he's with us, but, I wished he would have went about it just in a different fashion. So, there's really a lot that we've had come and go that I just want to see a little bit more consistency. And I'm hoping that Olivier Giroud, who in my opinion as a DP should be putting in at least 10 goals per season. We've seen one. This morning's match against Club America, they didn't give him a lot of opportunity. I think he had maybe 1 or 2 shots that were real opportunities for him. I think if we can get him somehow linked up, whether we play a 3-5-2-1 or some combination that's going to allow him to be a little bit more freed up with Boang on the left and David Martinez on the right, I think eventually he should come into his own, and I'm hoping we see that earlier rather than later in the season, because I've always loved him. He's a very handsome looking dude, and he looks like the prototypical footballer, right? But B, he's all-time French scoring leader, and he's won at every level. AC Milan, for the French national team, and I just want to see him do the same type of contribution for LAFC. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, a lot to talk about with Giroud. We could do an entire podcast episode on how LAFC sets up and if it really takes advantage of what Giroud brings in, because I mean, you look at Buanga and where is it that he succeeds the most? And to me, I look at it and it's like you get a quick counter and it's Buanga goes solo, striding past everyone, maybe going like either 1-on-1 or 1-on-2 with the defense in front of him. And it's like, that's not what complements Giroud at all.
Yeah, that's been part of the problem, is the fact that, Giroud is more of a feed me the ball from the wing and I'm going to get something in the middle. And then our wing players, whether it's Bogish or whether it's David Martinez or Buanga, they're more attacking and they're slicing and they're going directly at the defense and creating that type of offense, which does not necessarily fit the style of Giroud. He's either going to be in an offside position or he's kind of going to be in the way, clogging it up, which is either one of those is not an ideal situation, because he should be getting fed the ball or we're just not feeding him enough.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this season, I mean, I would love to see, I mean, I've being an Arsenal fan first and foremost, for vast majority of my life now. I mean, I've watched plenty of Olivier Giroud. Luckily he's in a conference that is not, going to consistently see FC Cincinnati. So I would be fine to see Olivier Giroud succeed. Like, I would love to see more iconic goals from him. Although I feel like half of his iconic goals are headers, but
I,
is what it
I'm,
is.
I'm okay with that. But, and I didn't mention Ebobisse, who we signed. He came on in the second half for Giroud this morning, and he's done that a couple of times now that I've been able to watch. I always admired him, and I was really happy that we were able to sign him. I'm not sure how much legs he has left in him at this point in his career, because he's definitely put in the minutes over the last, I guess, 10, 15, almost 17 years, something like that. But he definitely brings the same style of play that allows him to link up and provide opportunities for the other players, which I've not seen Giroud do that yet, other than he did a nice dummy this morning. So we had the second goal, which was it was a nice goal from Nathan Ordaz, one of our academy players. He's been with the first team now for a couple of years. We had Belonga go up on the left, attacking the defense, and then he crossed the ball to the middle. Giroud kind of dummied it, and it went to Ordaz. Ordaz, put it in. It wasn't the most beautiful finish, but hey, it was a goal in the long run. So being able to see him do a little bit more of that distraction play and possibly feeding some of the other players whenever he's in the middle there, I think would be ideal. And I think he'll eventually get his opportunities.
Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for it. Like I said, I want to see it. So going back to, I guess, the second part of this first topic, most impact player coming in your opinion? And then as well, what player do you think, I guess, what outbound player do you want to shout out for any reason, good or bad?
Yeah. So the probably the outbound player that I'll go with the outbound, and then we'll go with the impact. The outbound player that I think is going to be the biggest miss is Matty Bogish. I mean, Bogish, he great attitude, always out there. He played multiple positions. He was always the kind of, 6 different options that you could get out of it, depending on what type of team you're playing or what configuration or, what lineup or that we were rolling out there with Dolo. I think he's going to be really missed. I think that probably the best additions maybe are going to be one of two. It's Bobase and Yeboah. I think those two are going to help us because, one of the things that I noticed over the last couple of seasons without us making it to so many finals is we definitely need a deeper bench. And I hope that when we have, Martinez and Thiago Holm and Jesus, the younger players are going to have more opportunities and be able to be in there consistently. But you need someone like a Yeboah and a Bobase, in the back, in the front. They can provide you that consistency. And Delgado, to be honest with you, I think is going to be, turn out to be a steal in the long run, because you need those kind of veteran players that you can count on day in, day out to provide you that. And then one other that I think is probably, I haven't talked about is Del Valle. Del Valle is a player who came in 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons ago. He's a defender just like Chiellini. Chiellini took him under his wing. He was starting to get into his own, play well. Then he had a serious knee injury. So he spent all of last season kind of rehabbing. And I think he's ready now to start coming in. As I'm warming up this morning. And hopefully he can contribute and eventually become one of those stalwarts in the back, like Hollingshead or Long, where he can really get in there and be consistent, replacing Murillo from that perspective. So I definitely think I'll see some good minutes out of him. I just hope that, his confidence, because I've had 2 knee injuries over the past 20 years. And the one thing that you need to kind of trust is your knee when you're doing cutting. Running straight forward is never a problem. So I just hope he just has that trust and that strength in there to be able to do that. Cause that's going to be key as a defender is you're going to have to make cuts as the attackers are coming in order to get your body position proper from that perspective. So hopefully he's able to do that. But yeah, I really think that, Bobase and Delgado and Yeboah are probably going to be a good signing from that perspective. And there's hopefully someone to replace Matty Bogish. But $10 million is a lot of money, especially given the fact that, we're not a final destination league. We're moving up as far as the value goes, but, I want to see other players get their minutes, develop here, and then we can sell on and then hopefully reinvest that into some other younger talent.
Yeah. Well, weirdly enough, right? I was actually talking about scouting other leagues with some of the other MLS Now folks last night, and one of the ones that I mentioned, I was like, I feel like we need to do more scouting of like the Eredivisie because there's a lot of talent there, and everyone just thinks Ajax, 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 and it's like it's not a bad league. Like there's some really quality players there, and I don't think that MLS should just look at it and say, oh, like they're all going to a Big Five league next. Like get in the conversation.
I think it's definitely worth the conversation, and it's funny that you mentioned that because the Eredivisie I think it's a great amalgam because it's the one league, if you will, that kind of develops the tiki-taka style of total football that Barcelona went and took to the next level from that perspective. But you have Ajax, you have Feyenoord, you have PSV, Eindhoven. Those are the big guys. But then the next level down, you have quite a few, other teams out there, Utrecht and Volendam even, or, there's other areas out here, Zwolle, that have some really good talent. What you'll find, like Zwolle, for example, they have Fufu Krastev, who used to be an LAFC player who's out there now, and he's doing some great things. But you'll get a lot of Eastern Europeans. You'll get some South Americans. You'll get some Americans. I mean, PSV Eindhoven is full of Americans. From that perspective, but you'll get a lot good mix of talent out there that I think, honestly, if you look, if you remove the top 3 teams from the Eredivisie and you say, okay, what about the rest? How does MLS stack up? I think MLS would compete quite well. Not that we couldn't compete against, Eindhoven and Ajax, the local Amsterdam team, but you're not going to find out of 10 matches that we're going to beat them 9 times. But if you go up against Utrecht, we're going to compete quite well against them and probably the top tier teams, the FC Cincinnati, LAFC, the larger teams that have good consistency, Columbus, those types of teams from that perspective are going to do quite well in that league. I agree. I think it's an untapped market. The weather is a bit rough, to be quite honest with you. But, the Dutch lifestyle is fantastic. You can bike everywhere. It's safe. There's a lot of good positives, rain aside.
Well, look, if they ever want to come to the Midwest, they can deal with some brutal winters here, and then they can deal with some uncomfortably hot and humid summers. So I don't see any downsides weather-wise if they were to ever want to leave that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The youngest daughter lives in Chicago. We were there a couple of Thanksgivings ago, and I was looking forward to coming back to Amsterdam where I could warm up because it was absolutely freezing there.
Yeah, Chicago is one city that like every time we visit it, I'm like, oh, Chicago, this is gonna be nice. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's called the Windy City for a reason. Oh, this is rough.
It's tough and biting.
Okay, so it's safe to say we get to see how the sausage is made. But as I, said off air, like the Facebook group analogy of the casual fan, what's a non-casual fan saying, or what are they seeing, or what's the temperature right now? Are they looking at it and saying, "Oh, we're going for like we're going to go straight to like the conference finals again." Like, doesn't matter who left. Like, still a great team. Is there concern there? Like, what's the what's the vibe right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, Russell. So in general, because of the winning culture that LAFC has created, and fortunately because of our success early on, we as fans expect to win it all, every competition that we're in. I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not going to be able to defend the U.S. Open Cup because of the way you can only be in two international tournaments. But hey, we're going to be in two others. Liga, the Leagues Cup and CONCACAF Champions League. I'll take those. So the expectation is for us to be number one in the West. Get playoff advantage all the way through and win every competition that we're in. Would we like Supporter Shield? Sure, absolutely. But that's a tough road. In other leagues, Supporter Shield means you win the league. But for us in MLS, we consider winning the league, winning the MLS Cup. So it's a little bit different from that perspective. The average casual fan will always look at our seasons because we change so much from season to season. We lose a lot, we add a lot, and we have yet to have all three DP spots filled. So they get a lot nervous. And I do too, to be honest with you. But the one thing that I do know that I've learned over the years is trust in Johnny T. John Thorrington knows what the hell he's doing. He's always got the early year, mid-year, full year, 2-year, 3-year plan, and he's always pulling levers that we're not even seeing. So all of a sudden, we'll get a Hugo Lloris or league minimum, when everyone's thinking, because everyone looks at our roster and they're like, oh, they're just spending so much money. We're not. We're not spending as much as what people think. So in general, you have to trust the process, and it's incumbent upon the Dolos of the world, Toronto, the gaffer, to make sure that we've got everything gelling right from a team perspective, and really the entire culture, whether it's the performance center, whether it's the training staff, or whether it's the front office or even the back office. We're all moving towards that direction, and of course the 3-2-5-2 is pretty special in my opinion. The way that the 3-2-5-2, and I am a member of the 3-2-5-2. We finally were able to get international shipping this past season, so I rejoined them after a couple of year hiatus, having moved out here. But it's in general, we expect to win it all, but a lot of people throughout the season, you'll see, dolo outs, or you'll see, a lot of criticism of a particular player, whether it's Giroud or someone else. You just have to kind of let the process play out, and you have to be willing to not grow too attached to a particular player, because it's football. So, they'll be good for 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 years, and then they're going to be somewhere else. But the end result is I want to see us in the finals, and I want to see us win more finals than just showing up to the finals. And that's what the expectation is.
Man, I love it. I've had quite a number of teams that I've been talking to so far. I love that I'm right now doing an interview where it's like, we expect to win everything. Because we've had, this might date the episode a little bit, but they come out in order. So, but we've had like, SDFC that we've gone through. We've had Chicago. We've had, NYCFC was less than 12 hours ago for me. And it's just like, there's a lot of teams in there, and same thing like Cincinnati, and there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of movement, and it's, to be on a team where it's like, we expect to win it all. It's like, that's some serious confidence, especially because, not even one match has been played yet officially. And it's like, I wish I had the trust in the process for Cincinnati to just jump in 2-footed like that.
Yeah, I mean, the first season, I just wanted us to make the playoffs, and we did, and we actually exceeded my expectations. And then after that, you get the taste, and then we end up making it to finals, and then the expectation grows. And now that we have some success and some trophies in our cabinet, we do expect to win it all. And I think we have the talent to win it all. It's just depending on, can we get them to perform correctly, and can we replace some of the defensive, offensive, midfield players that we lost with the newer talent that's coming in, or veteran talent that's coming in.
Yeah. Well, and I think the only The only real worry that I have with an MLS roster rules in terms of competing for a whole season is like just keeping guys healthy. Because I agree, like you guys definitely have the talent to go all the way on it. And it's just the way that we're set up as a league, man, you get one or two bad injuries and it's like, oh, I it can set back any team to get injuries at a bad time, but I feel like the threshold for injuries setting a team back is much lower in
Yeah,
MLS because of how thin the rosters are.
I completely agree because if you compare us, money to money, position to position with Liga MX, Liga MX players on the average are much more, they're paid better. So you would think, okay, if they're drawing bigger salaries, higher wages, they are more talented, they have more quality, and they go deeper. So you would expect that in the long run over a long season, if we went head to head back and forth, that they would get the better of us. And they do because of the way that their season starts before ours and that type of thing. But yeah, I agree. It's keeping healthy. It's being able to understand, the modern science of training and diet and exercise. And I think, the benefit that we have here in the modern world, the 21st century football, is the fact that there is such more of an emphasis on nutrition and training regimes and rest times and, other things that, if you look at Diego Maradona, he's smoking cigarettes, doing cocaine before he's going out on the pitch, right? That's not the mentality anymore. It's much more, I'm in tune with my body and you have the science behind it, backing it. So that plays to our benefit nonetheless, but you're right. Until we can get more money into the rosters themselves, we're always going to be at a bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah. Man, that's a great shout because, like, to your point, I think of like you look at the other big name stars, right? Like Olivier Giroud. He's at an age where 20 years ago, how many people are playing at his age? Like, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Messi, Ronaldo. Like, you can take any of like these high profile names that are in their, not just early 30s, but like you're looking like mid 30s, even late 30s for some of them,
Late
right?
40s.
Yeah. And it's just like, and they're still at the top level. That's incredible. That's like 5, 6, 7, 8 years into retirement. And, not even that long ago for the sport.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, Kai Kamara last season, when he came to our team, he is one of the fastest, most fit players on the team. And, he is by far older than everybody else, about twice the age as, Eric Duenas, who's no longer on the roster. But, you just put that in comparison, and you're like, okay, that's amazing. And then I look at how old I am, and I'm like, okay, could I be doing that 10, 15 years ago? Probably not. God bless him.
Yeah, look, I couldn't even do it now. And to be honest, I think I'm even still like a couple years younger than Kai Kamara. So, okay, that aside, we've talked about winning it all, right? Let's arbitrarily set, like, let's say you guys win Supporters Shield, and not just that, you go on to go all the way to like MLS Cup final, and even let's say you win it, right? Like you do the double this year. What would you say are your three biggest things that need to go right for you in order to do that?
Yeah. So one thing that we need to have right is we need to get Olivier Giroud, scoring. He needs to be producing at least 10 goals. And if he's not producing 10 goals or at least contributing to about 15 in total, I think that's going to be a big miss. The second thing is we need to bring in a summer signing that's going to be an impact player instantly, not a let's get him used to it. Whether it's Antoine Griezmann, who's been rumored multiple times, whomever that is, they need to be an instant contributor from that perspective. And then the third, which is actually more important than the other two, in my opinion, is we need to make sure that the midfield, the players that we've lost, the players that we brought on, control the midfield, because that dictates the game. I'm not as concerned with Lloris and our backs in the back. I think we've got good consistency there. But if you watch LAFC over the last season, the games that we struggled, the matches that we struggled in, were the ones where the midfield we look lost. It didn't even look like we had midfielders playing in there. So if we can have a consistent core of midfielders that can be matched up depending on whether they need to be a little bit more defensive or a little bit more offensive from that perspective, and they can control and dominate that midfield, that will definitely dictate for us, how how successful we can be in winning those trophies. But if we don't have that, and really Giroud contributing the way he should, and whoever we have come sign on in the summer signing period, I think those are the three things that will dictate, the overall success on whether we just make it to a final or whether we win trophies.
I'm curious then. So you talk about the summer signing. This would be after a potential run in CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. Like, just that starting up so early in the season. What do you like? Is that something you're looking at? Like, hey, it'd be nice if we could make it, or does that fall under the let's win that too?
We got to win it. I mean, that honestly, I think last year, in my opinion, it was U.S. There were two cups that I wanted us to win: the U.S. Open Cup and the MLS Cup. This year, it's going to be MLS Cup and CONCACAF Champions League. So, CONCACAF Champions League is the one that we need to go after and go for in full throttle. There needs to be no bars hold on that particular competition. We deserve to win it if we earn it on the pitch. But in my opinion, we've been fairly consistent in that. Unfortunately, we don't always get to play in that because you have to qualify for it. But we definitely should do really well. I think it's an opportunity for, Boba said, David Martinez, a lot of these players that we brought in, Jesus, to go in there and really contribute for us and show us what they can do. I'm super excited to see, Odin Thiago Holm playing in the midfield. Once he gets a little bit healthier, he's able to play on the pitch. From what I saw, he was able to do at Celtic, and he wasn't Brandon Rodgers' favorite player, so I didn't see much of him. But what I did see, I liked. He's technically gifted, and I think he's got a lot of speed, and he's got a good vision for the field on how to lay off players and put them in good scoring positions. So I think that we have all the tools in place. It's just getting them to gel together. And that's the one thing that I know Dolo does really well, is he's able to create that esprit de corps, that camaraderie, to get that team playing like a team where, yeah, you have stars, but they're performing as a team. And we need to get that rather sooner rather than later. And I was really happy to see us play a Copa America final or second of the, penultimate, preseason match, because it's that type of team, especially given the fact that, that there was a lot of yellow in the stands. So they have a big fan base. So it wasn't really like a home match, right? It was almost like playing on neutral territory. Very, very difficult situation. Have that now so we can see where we are, gauge where we are, and see where we need to improve. Because as you mentioned, the CONCACAF Champions League, it jumps on you in minutes. I mean, you barely start the league and then you got to play in it.
Yeah, I think in the case of FC Cincinnati, I think we play in 7 days is our first match there in that competition.
Well, I'm looking forward to on the 22nd of being to the home opener. We're going to be down there. We get to go back home for a couple of weeks and get to meet our grandson, who was born on the 30th of December. And my wife and I will be in our seats that we've had forever, right behind on the south side behind the goal. And I'm super excited, for the season to start.
I'll be looking for you on the broadcast. That's for sure. I might not see you if the cameras don't do me the favor of it, but I'll be looking for it.
I'll be there. 6 rows up. Yeah. Section 121.
There you go. See, my days of being in the supporter section and standing there and getting rowdy are unfortunately over, but I'll live vicariously through you.
There you go.
Okay, so going back to looking forward, looking forward to the players, not us, right? What are your thoughts, right? Biggest question, because there has been a lot that's happened this offseason. You had players in, players out, like you said, people have called for Dolo's job many times. He's not given much reason to have it called for, right? But let's say that the season doesn't go well. Like, what would be the biggest cause for the season not to go well that you're worried about?
Yeah, so if we can get someone there's two. If we can get someone other than Bouanga to score consistently, that would be a big reason as to why, and that would be a concern for me because we need to have consistent scoring. And I don't want us to be the type of team where you have one or maybe two players do all of the scoring. It's a much better result and more comfortable if you can get, the midfielders involved, the wing players involved, even some of the defenders involved in scoring opportunities, whether it's on a set piece or, a fluke where they go up the wing and they're able to score from that perspective, but have more of a distributed scoring. So it's not so incumbent upon one single player like a Bouanga, who it maybe has an off match and then you're done because you didn't put any goals in from that perspective. The other thing is consistency out of the midfield, as I mentioned before, because we lost some. Ilie Sanchez is now in Austin. He's a fantastic field general. Atuesta, same type of thing. He's going to be back in the league too. So we need to have some consistent midfielders that can play as a unit to help out, the Tillman, right? So we need, Tillman in there to be consistent and to play well and have some complementary players, whether it's Home or Jesus, whomever is going to be able to step into that and drive that, because I'm a big believer in midfielders. I believe that they dictate whether you're going to win or lose. And you win championships with defense, but you win matches with the midfield. If they can control and dictate the pace of play and how we're going to play in every match, I think that'll be consistent. If we can't get that because of injuries or because they're not gelling together, then we're going to be in for a really rough season.
So, rough season, right? The thought that I have that could also maybe worry me, a lot of teams in the West are getting a lot better this year. So that threshold, you've got to stay very, very high in terms of like performance, in terms of consistency, because like even look at San Jose, right? They were a laughing stock last year, and I think that's putting it politely. Now it's like, look at the players they've brought in this offseason. I mean, incredible amount of movement. And same thing, right? Like Dallas has shipped off tons of players, but now it's like they're signing center backs. They've got like their homegrown talent, Lucho Acosta going to Dallas as well. And it's just like Austin, Texas. They're investing heavily as well, bringing in players. Brandon Vasquez coming up from Monterey, going in there, bringing other players around to replace like Driussi, who's left. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like the West is going to be a meat grinder this year.
It definitely is. I mean, you mentioned San Jose. Chicho Rango was one of my players that I loved when we had him. And I think, nothing but the world for him. It's going to be rough watching him play. He's left Real Salt Lake and he's now over there in San Jose playing for them. But you're right. The key for the West is you've got to win your matches at home because you can't expect to win the matches on the road. Definitely not now with the fact that everybody's gotten so strong. So if you can get a result, points, maybe 3 points on the road, that would be fantastic. But you really need to put those matches away at home. Those 17 matches at home, if you can get 3 points from every single one or, most of them, I think you're going to be doing well from that perspective. But you're right. The West this year, because of the acquisitions and the talent and, Carson down the street, as much as I don't want to admit it, they have a good product. They didn't for a long time, but they have a good product now. They won the cup, etc. So, all of that is going to play into it. And we have to be consistent. We have to make sure that we take care of business at home. The bank, our BMO needs to be the fortress that it's always been. And if we can continue to do that, I think we'll do well. Do I want us to be first? Sure. Do I think we're going to be first every single time? Sure. Do I think it's going to be first this year, given all the roster changes throughout the league and especially the West? I don't know. We'll have to see, because we're just going to have to take care of business one match at a time. And that's the one thing I do appreciate about Dolo is he keeps them very focused on the match ahead, not looking 2 matches ahead, not looking 3 matches ahead. He may be looking 2 or 3 matches ahead, but he keeps them focused on today's task. Because, it goes back to when I was in the Marine Corps. You got to do first things first. First thing you got to do is you got to win the match that's coming up. Forget about the rest of them. Just win that match that's coming up, and then you'll be good to go.
So as we're getting close to 40, 45 minutes here, and as my workday is rapidly approaching, I want to throw one other just off topic fun question your way to close out. Let's say you get an email tomorrow morning You check it and it's, it's not a phishing email. It's not a scam. It's the real thing. MLS emailed you. They say, Dave, we listened to the episode with the MLS Now podcast. We listened to your preseason content. We love you. We want you to be our new ambassador in Amsterdam. But we need you to come up with a plan on how to grow, the league in Amsterdam. What would be your first course of action?
Well, that's a great, hey, that would be awesome. I would love that. Yeah, I think that it's really about awareness because honestly, when I talk to my Dutch colleagues out here or friends, about MLS, well, first, when I talk to them about football, the very first thing they say, oh, yeah, American football. I said, no, we're not talking about American football. We're talking about football, the sport that everybody watches. So it's really awareness of what the league is and the quality of the product. Because I can mention the players and they'll say, oh, yeah, I heard that you guys got Giroud and blah, blah, blah. Have you watched any matches? Well, no, not really. So we need to figure out some way on how to make those times on viewing a little bit more amenable. Because, I'm the guy who, for a Sunday night match, I get up at 4:30 or 2:30 in the morning on Monday morning to watch the match. I am a diehard fan. We need to make it more better for a casual fan, whether it's doing some international friendlies, which I think would be great, where you have a team comes out here and they play three Eredivisie teams, or you have a team that goes out to, the Spanish league and they play in, La Liga, three matches. We need to do some type of goodwill ambassadorship from that perspective and make it a little bit more consistent in order for them to realize the quality of the product. Because I can be the first one to tell you, before LAFC came in, I didn't really watch much MLS because the product wasn't that great. Over the last several years, 7, 8, 9 years, the quality of the product has gotten fantastic. I wouldn't be saying that we're ahead of the Eredivisie from overall average quality if I didn't believe it. And I do believe it. And we're steadily moving up in the ladder there. And as you'll see more and more talent players going across back and forth, I think that will help too. But we really need to make some concerted effort to make it to where it's a decent time to watch a match. Because not everybody's going to get up at 2, 3, or 4 in the morning and over watching match.
Yeah. I mean, case in point, right? Like we get a little bit easier on the East Coast because, if I want to watch Arsenal, like, okay, that's only like 5 or 6 in the morning that I need to wake up, or it's only like 7 if it's a midday kickoff, right? And it's like, that's reasonable. I can stomach that. I can wake up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday when I would rather be asleep. That's okay. But you wake up at 2 in the morning your time, and that's a little bit tougher of a sell.
It is. Hey, another idea is actually something like what Wrexham did and what Liverpool did, several years ago is let's have a documentary that kind of follows a particular team throughout the season. And that way you get exposed to that particular team and those players, but you also get exposed to the league in general. I think that's a consistent way, a good way of marketing, a particular product. And then couple that with some more reasonable times. I think you would be able to have a good growing fan base out here.
Yeah. Look, I would love staggered times in MLS and a little bit more distributed matches throughout the day. One, because then I can watch more soccer. It's so tricky when everything kicks off like within an hour of each other. It's like, oh, come on, guys. Like, I'm fine to rewatch it, but to your point, we're diehard fans. Other people are gonna be like, I missed it. What's the score? 2-1. Okay, cool. Move on with the day.
Yep. And one note to Apple TV: do not post the score of the match for the replay on the little cutout there. That kills me because you already know what it's going to be.
Yeah. Every time too. I turned it off to like get the no scores while the matches are going, but it's like, come on. Like if the match is still going, that score doesn't mean as much to me. Like anything can happen. Like we've seen matches turn around where like 2 goals come in 3 minutes. Like I don't care if I know that it's 1-0. I'm going to turn it on and be like, oh, it's a close game still.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dave, I appreciate you making some time to be on here. It's kind of the middle of the day for you over on your side of the world. So I appreciate it. You rock. obviously the fans are going to think that you rock as well for everyone who listens to the podcast, because I mean, come on, you're giving us perspective from a very unique place. So your insight is greatly appreciated. And I don't know, I look forward to more conversations with you here, either on the podcast or outside of it, because you bring excellent insight.
Oh, thanks, Russell. I really appreciate the invite. I love talking football. Clearly, I love LAFC. So I thank you very much. And I hope your fans enjoyed this, and, take it with a grain of salt.
Right. Well, it's like a margarita, rim it in salt.
There you go.
And then, but then only like take one spot on the salt, like margaritas. And it's like, why do I need a whole salt rim? Because like I'm going to drink it from the same spot every time. Like, if anything, just like put one dab of salt.
There you go.
That would look weird. People are gonna be like, what are you doing? Awesome. Well, just a reminder to everyone listening, if you want to engage with Dave on social media, he's on Blue Sky at LAFC Dutch Dave. And then, of course, the podcast, you can always find us on social media at MLS Now Podcast. And with that said, thank you, everyone. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Dave. And we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks. Cheers.